Lately, I have been listening to the audiobook of Infidel by Ayaan Hirsi Ali. In it, she tells the story of her Muslim upbringing in Somalia, and after an attempt at an arranged marriage to a man she doesn't know, she flees to Holland, much to the confusion of her family who doesn't understand why she would want to make any choices for herself. It is the story of legitimate oppression of women and authentic rape culture, where women have their labia and clitoris sliced off, and then their vaginas literally sewn shut, their vaginas meant to stay closed until they are physically torn open by their husband's penis on the night of their honeymoon. There are stories in the book of husbands failing to tear their wives open, and instead having to spend their honeymoon at a hospital, the wives crying in pain and shame, the families giggling with gossip about the husband and the wife not having bloodied bed sheets to proudly parade around the fellow hen-like ants the next day. When Ayaan Hirsi Ali escapes to Holland and tells the Dutch women there her story, they're confused by the ways of her native culture. Doctors in Holland dealing with the influx of refugees from African and Muslim countries are also confused, confounded by the sight of another young Muslim woman with literally no vagina, simply a scar where her vagina was sewn too tightly shut and turned into a flat panel of scarred skin. The doctors scratched their heads in confusion as to how this could happen, while the other refugees scratched their heads at the doctor's confusion. To the Muslim women, that is just their culture, and they don't understand why any other culture would do things differently. This is identical to how traditional conservative men in the MGTOW or MRA movements behave. They got into relationships and got married to toxic abusive women because that is simply their culture. Their religion told them that was how to live their lives, and they obeyed their religion without question. The risks were not exactly invisible, as there had been more and more stories about men being destroyed in divorces since the 80s and 90s. These traditional conservative men ignored it because for some reason their conservative politics also draws from a fairy tale delusion, the same sort of dogmatic brainwashing that feminists receive in their universities or from other feminists. The dogmatic brainwashing results in making bad life choices. These traditional conservative men are supposedly awakened by the MGTOW movement. Traditional conservative men should not be taken at face value. They should not be accepted freely. They should be held at arm's length and forced to prove themselves. When they say an MRA is one blowjob away from becoming a feminist again, these are the men that are most susceptible, because their lives were spent obeying the dogma that led them to ruin. One thing about dogma is that its control over the brainwashed is strong. Even when they break out, they look for any excuse to break back in. If a MGTOW or MRA man claims he's on this new enlightened path, but is still a traditional conservative in any form, he is not truly a man going his own way, as it is obviously impossible for a man to go his own way and still be enslaved to a dogmatic unquestionable belief. No married man can be a man going his own way, and no religious man can be a man going his own way, because both are enslaved to beliefs that do not have their best interests in mind, and yet both beliefs brainwash them into thinking they have their best interests in mind.